Welcome back to Born for This Stories, where we speak the truths no one told us, so you don't have to carry this alone. Today's story reminds us that some parents live inside the hospital walls for longer than they could ever imagine, and still find a way to create laughter, love, and faith in the middle of it all. We are honored to welcome Susie, mom of 3, with her youngest being her brave little heart warrior who was born with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. Susie's life has been defined by resilience, advocacy, and the kind of love that doesn't quit, even after 3 strokes, 10-month hospital stays, and countless nights standing watch at Zane's bedside. So as much as you want to share, the better. I figure we can just kind of jump in.
Yeah. Our family is multi families in one. It all starts with I have 2 children from my previous marriage, McKenna, who's 15, and then Giancarlo, who's going to be 14 in November. And then I met my husband, Chris, and he has a daughter, Julia, who is 22 this month. And so when we met, we were both like, no more kids for us. We're good. Raising the 3 together, we were good with that. And Zane was our happy surprise. And we found out at the December, so I think it was actually January of 2020. So not everything had shut down yet, but we were we were both kind of scared, but we got to the point where we were pretty excited. But that's our little family.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It's such a beautiful blended.
Yes.
So tell us first off, what do you want people to hear first about Zane, and just kind of lead off with telling us about him.
Zane is the most amazing, strong person I've ever met. I think that his story is just so amazing, and to see everything that he's gone through and to see the child he is. If you look at Zane, you don't think anything's wrong with him. I've had people all the time say he looks perfect, and he does. He doesn't look like anything's wrong. And I think that is some of that stereotype when you see someone who's disabled or who has something going on medically or physically. If you look at him, you can't tell until the shirt comes off. And also, in his brain, there's a lot of, things going on that people can't see. So I think that it's just, this is more about bringing awareness to, you can't see all disabilities. You can't see all the things that are underneath, So I think that is one of the big messages. And, don't judge a book by its cover. And just, he really is the epitome of strong. And, I thank God every day for him, because we could have such different outcomes. And, I was watching one of your podcasts, and, sorry about the light. And I saw a clip, and sorry, I lost my spot. You said to let things go, not intervene or intervene. And I thought that was kind of crazy, because things could be so different if we didn't intervene and do what we needed to do. Yeah. And he would never be an amazing 5-year-old today. And when doctors see him, when we go to any appointments, because he has so many specialties, they look at him and say, I cannot believe he's here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, he's just amazing.
Yeah. And I think that has so much to speak about, you and your ability to be the best advocate for him, and pushing and asking the questions and picking the providers. And I know you're going to share more of your story, but it definitely sounds like that has been an avenue that you guys have had to really explore, on being the squeaky wheel and knowing what's going on. And I do look forward to diving more into that conversation with you for sure.
Yeah. My husband always says to everyone, if it weren't for Susie, Zane wouldn't be here anymore.
Yeah.
he kind of lets me drive the show when it comes to medical stuff.
Yeah.
He's got the brains of all the normal things. I feel like I never really was good at math and good at, all the school things. But when
Mhm.
it comes to him, I like, he's my specialty. So,
Yeah.
I know all the things with him. So,
Yeah. And he was placed upon you for a reason. Yeah.
yes, he was.
So getting into this a bit further, can you take us back to your 18-week ultrasound when you first heard the word hypoplastic left heart syndrome, and what was that moment like?
Well, like I said, it was the heat of the pandemic. My husband wasn't allowed to go to appointments with me. When I went in for that ultrasound, we went into the hospital, and um, the nurse didn't say anything, but I have two other kids, so I could tell that they were taking a lot longer on the heart area and
Yeah.
kept going back to it. And I didn't see the typical four chambers like I remember when, it had been a while, but I remember that didn't look right. And I was hoping that it was just me, like, you haven't done this in a while, maybe things are different. But I called my husband after because she didn't say anything, which, they're not allowed to.
Yeah.
And I called my husband. I said, I don't know if something's wrong with his heart, with the heart, because we didn't know. We got an envelope because we were going to do a gender reveal, social distance with our family. And I said, I think something might be wrong. And he's like, no, they would have said something. And I was like, okay. And so we got ready for our family to come over. We had dropped off the envelope to a pizza place. They were going to put pepperonis, a B or a G, on the on the pizzas, and we were all excited because we hadn't seen our family in a couple months. And so my kids were so excited because they had been asking for a sibling forever.
Oh.
And so everyone came over or they were on their way there, and we got a call from the doctor's office, and it was my regular OB. And the nurse practitioner said, the doctor's going to call you in about 45 minutes. Make sure your husband's there. And I was like, why, is something wrong? She's, I'm not authorized to say.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, oh, okay. And so my husband was working, but thankfully from home. And so I went downstairs to his office and I said, I think something's wrong with the baby. And so 45 minutes later, we got on the phone, and the doctor was it was a small town OBG, they didn't, she didn't know much, but older doctor. And she said, your son ruins the gender,
Oh.
and says he has the worst defect, that heart defect that a child can have, and he's probably not going to make it. And we were like, well, do you know what it is? Like, what is it called? And she had no more information for us. She just said that. And so we were devastated because we just were so excited. We got past the shock, and we were so excited for it. And that we got that news. So then I called our family and I said, listen, guys, we need to get more information. The baby has a bad heart defect, and we don't know if he's going to make it. And I don't really feel comfortable doing the gender reveal anymore. Like, we don't know what's going to happen. So all of my family and friends were like, nope, we're still going to do it. And he's, the baby's still a person, and they deserve this. You deserve this. Like, we were so excited. And so we did it reluctantly, but we just said we didn't want pictures taken or anything of us. And so we didn't let the kids know before. And they saw me like crying a little bit, but I kind of just tried to brush it off.
Yeah.
So after that, we did the gender reveal. Everyone found out it was a boy, and everyone was excited. The kids were so excited, but I had to let them know, something might be wrong with the baby, so I have to go to the doctors and find out. And then so we went to Dartmouth Hitchcock up in New Hampshire, and she's like, your husband can't come in, he can stay in the car, but you can come in. Yeah. And so it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
And so I have like an N95 on my face while I'm, halfway pregnant.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, it's hypoplastic left heart. And my husband wasn't there for it. And I just remember crying. I could barely breathe. And I said, what is that? And they just said the left side is either underdeveloped or not developed. And, we're not equipped to handle it. But I think if you go get a second opinion in Boston, that maybe, and this was like, we already had to wait like 2 weeks to get this appointment. So now I'm 20 weeks.
Yeah.
And I can feel him kicking, and I have this bond with him, and everyone just keeps saying like termination, termination. And I was like, I can't even think of this. I feel him. I know who he is. Like, I just can't even fathom this. And so now another week goes by and I go to Boston, and my mom went with me to this appointment because at this point my husband's like totally shut down. Like, what do you mean you're even thinking about continuing the pregnancy? Like, not in a mean way, but he's like,
Right.
this baby's going to be so sick. And my worst fear is all the stuff that this baby's going to have to endure. And, that's my biggest fear. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I
Yeah.
can't. And so I went with my mom, and then we met Zane's cardiologist and Dr. Brown, and he said, if he can make it through, there's 3 stages. There's the Norwood, the Glen, and the Fontan 3-stage palliative care. Sometimes can last. There's some people in their 30s with the Fontan anatomy, and they are doing okay. They have some side effects, but he said if they can make it through that first surgery, they have a really good chance. And with like how his defect is, from what we can see, it seems like he has a really good chance of I would say 70%. And I was like, well, that feels amazing. That's
Right.
great odds, that's not even 50%, 70%. Like, why wouldn't we try?
Right.
So, against my husband's, thoughts, I was like, I'm doing it. He has a 70% chance. If he's going to fight, I want to fight.
Yeah.
And I said, so I'm doing it with or without you. And, eventually he totally jumped back on, and he was excited, but scared.
Yeah.
And that's all he just kept saying to me is like, I'm really scared, but we thought the odds were, really good. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot. And to be, that feels like one of the biggest, like, dreadful moments for parents to be like in the current, but also like have this expectation of what could be beyond this, but so unsure.
Yeah.
Right. You're living in both of those worlds.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
You had said like in your intake something similar to that, the parents are not always told everything that can happen. So
Exactly.
let's expand on that.
Yeah. I just think that, you go into that appointment, they give you that hopeful 70%. They don't say like these kids have a high risk of stroke. They have a high risk of, forming clots because we're changing their anatomy. We're doing a surgery. They don't tell you that these kids have a lot of feeding intolerances. They don't tell you that they're going to fortify your breast milk. They
Mhm.
don't tell you that they're going to, the one thing that I am grateful for is that one mom that I reached out to told me, G-tube. Don't fight a G-tube. Don't fight, that thing could save your child's life. It could help them grow.
Right.
And, I've seen the NJ tubes for a lot of kids, and I was like, I don't want this thing in his nose.
Yeah.
And so that was one thing that I clung to very early on, which I really think has been like life, changing for our circumstance. And I see why people fight against it, but I also see why that a lot of people do it because
Yeah.
it is amazing. But they just don't tell you about all these things, and they expect you to come into this world and just know.
Right.
And you guys live it, the doctors, the nurses, the nutritionists, you live this every single day, so of course you know all the terminology, the ins and outs of it, but you don't let us know, because I think they're hopeful. I mean, this is hopefully how they think, hopeful that they won't need to tell you all those things. But
Right.
for a lot of the people that I've met in this world, because at Boston Children's, Zane's, it's a cardiac unit. It's 3 floors of the ICU, the ACCU, and then like a mix of the two. And so that's all I've been around. We're not mixed in with general population, so you see the heart kids,
Mhm.
and a lot of them have had a lot of issues, and I just don't think that it's fair. They should tell you
Yeah.
the things that can go wrong, because you have all these hopes and that things are going to go well, but then thing after thing is thrown at you.
Yeah.
And you walk, when I saw Zane for the first time after his first open heart surgery at 2 days old, no one told me that his chest was going to be left open,
Mm.
and I was going to see his little heart beating outside of his chest. And I'm postpartum,
Yeah.
sitting there looking like that doesn't even look like the baby
Yeah.
I gave birth to.
Yeah. And those are hard moments to come back from. Like, I know that you'll never lose that image of your
Never.
son in your head. And that being early on and being postpartum, that is like not one of the most impressionable moments that you want to have. And I did want to kind of loop back because I do feel like having these conversations with different caregivers and parents and different conditions, like one of the common themes unfortunately seems to be a lack of proper informed consent. And
Mhm.
that informed consent is also letting the person know the pros and cons. Yes, we want to glorify all the good that can happen, but it is also so important to really educate that person in front of you about the cons that can happen with any of these procedures. Because if you don't, and you have to live it like you did, it would be better if you had information on your side as you're going through it and be like, well, yeah, obviously this sucks because the bad part happened that we didn't want to happen, but I feel better prepared on like what I can do about it because
Yeah.
I knew it was a possibility. We were praying that it wasn't going to happen, but we knew it was a possibility. How did
That's
you?
kind of how I always felt. I
Yeah,
always wanted more information, but when it comes to other people, I feel like I talked to a couple of moms because like I liked certain doctors and surgeons and nurses because they did go into detail about what could happen, what is happening. I love that. I'm a
yeah,
planner. I want to know what's going to happen, good or bad. And I don't think a lot of the moms that I did meet and dads, they didn't feel that way. They were like, "Oh,
mhm,
I didn't like that doctor because he told me too much. I'm not the doctor. I don't want to know that." And I was like,
yeah,
"Oh." So I think that it can go both ways, and maybe they've had more of that, so
mhm,
they choose that. But that's, it doesn't. I think that it should be like, hey, I'm going to give you this paperwork. If you have questions, talk to me about it. This is stuff that can happen. And if you don't want to know it, don't read it,
yeah,
but I think that it's really unfair, for parents going into this, especially like children's knows they've been doing this for 30 years. You were the founders, like you guys are like the best of the best. So give more information, and I do have a very love-hate relationship with our hospital. I love them for keeping him alive, and I love for all that they've done for him. And I found our team, and I'm so grateful for them. But I definitely think that there's flaws in the system, and I think
sure.
that's everywhere.
Yeah, agreed. Everywhere, all different conditions. Because like we loved our team. Like we searched high and low, and we picked the ones that we felt most comfortable with. But at the same time, like on that post-op side, like it's like once you're gone, once they do their job, they prepare
Yeah,
you to an extent. But then it's like everything else that like your mind jumps to when you're home by yourself is there, but like no one's there for you.
exactly.
So I feel like we know these things, right? Like this isn't the first case of any of these conditions. Like, how do we support the parents and the caregivers more so than jumping onto Google?
Yes. Yeah.
Because you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't
Especially
know.
now too. I feel like
Mhm.
even more now, even 5 years ago, I don't feel like we had as much AI as we do now.
Correct.
You
Yeah.
can ask sorry, my son's Dexcom keeps going off. They don't ask you. I mean, you can ask AI like, "Hey, what's hypoplastic left heart?" and it's
Right.
gonna come up with all these other things. But
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I had that back then, and
Hmm.
it says AI can be wrong, so I think that's kind of scary too. We need like
Oh, yeah.
more factual things.
Agreed. I know we're
Yeah,
getting into a real scary time with AI.
yeah,
I see that all the time. And with these conditions too, right? Because you are going to do your own research because it's not provided for you. So take, take someone that's not used to reading medical jargon and research and try to have them read the medical text so they know they're not getting wrong information from AI or from whatever source. And then it's like how well can you interpret it and understand that? Like, it sounds like you took the bull by the horns and like you took the information on and you educated yourself and you're like, this is going to be my new job and responsibility. But also, with that being said, like talking to other parents, like they don't want to know, or
yeah,
it's like, it's not my wheelhouse. Like, just do what the doctor says. But sometimes, I don't know, I guess sometimes, for lack of better terms, ignorance is bliss. Like, I mean that in the nicest way possible because you don't know what the worst case scenario could be. And so maybe you don't think about it and hopefully you don't have to deal with it. But when you
yeah.
do, it feels pretty crappy to be in that position and not have the information that you need to move forward quickly.
And I feel like it's really hard. I don't know if you guys had to learn this, but I feel like it's really hard when you're starting out to say no to a doctor, which you don't know that you can say no. I don't feel like that is
Mhm.
the right thing to do. And you know, in the beginning, I look back and I'm like, oh gosh, I wish I could have done
Yeah.
different. I wish I said no. I wish that I did this. You know, I wish.
Yeah.
But I don't. I feel like that's another thing. Nobody tells you that you're allowed to say no.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thankfully, we come from Pete comes from a family of other chiropractors. So like his like upbringing was very more like holistic. I unfortunately had in my family a loss of my younger brother when I was little. And as a young kid, I felt like that was the fault of the medical system because we did take him to the pediatrician and they checked him out and they said everything was fine and sent him home and he passed away in his sleep.
Oh, I'm so
So
sorry.
early on, I was very jaded on taking a recommendation from a medical provider and not asking questions or finding an alternative solution or something like that, which is one reason that we're so passionate about this project and advocating for parents and encouraging them to ask questions because many of them have probably and have been shut down or felt like they haven't been able to ask. And
Mm-hmm.
it is the job of the medical side, no matter if you're in the hospital, surgical center, or whatever, for them to provide the information to you. May it be a pain in their ass if you ask a question, possibly. However, the person is entitled to the information. You are entitled to know the pros and cons, that is proper informed consent to make sure you are making the right decision. And it's sad that that's not happening. It's really sad
Well,
because it
Really?
affects the outcome of the patient. And in these
Yep.
cases, the patients are babies, children, young adults. Like they don't know how to advocate for themselves. And most people, I would say, would probably ask a question, be shut down, and be like, "Oh my God, I can never ask that again," or they may not take my case, and this
Yeah.
person may not help my kid.
well,
Yep.
and the time frame that you were dealing with all of this
Oh
was
yeah,
the time in history where you heard trust your doctor more than anything else. You couldn't turn on the TV without hearing that. Trust the
Nope.
science, trust your doctor over and over and over. So you're probably even more likely to not ask as many questions as you feel like you'd want to because of all
Mhm.
the intense emotions around even being in a hospital. You couldn't even have your husband there when you were,
Yeah.
dealing with all of this. So it was a really hard time for you, I'm sure, to navigate all that in that time, especially.
Yeah.
Very hard.
So I do want to go a little bit more into. Obviously, we know about the condition and the possible outcomes of the surgeries if you decide to go down that path, but then take us down the path. Like what did happen?
Okay. Yeah. So Zane, he was born 2 weeks early. I actually had called because I had two different OBs. So I had the one up in New Hampshire, and then I had a high risk in Boston. And I kept calling my one up in New Hampshire. I'm like, listen, I really don't feel good. And they're like, oh, well, you just saw the doctor in Boston on Monday. They said everything's fine. This was Wednesday. And so I called them. I called Boston. I said, listen, nobody's listening to me. I just really don't feel good. I want to get checked out, especially with him being high risk. I really want to make sure everything's okay. They said, come on down. It was like a rainy, cold day. My husband specifically said to me, you know, just tonight, no baby tonight, because it's my football draft. I paid for this one. And it's like a funny thing we always bring up to each other because I'm like, oh, no, no, I'm just going to get checked out. I'll be right
Yeah.
back. I was so sure that I was going to get checked out that I parked valet. That's how positive I was. But it was funny because my best friend, I had gotten approval in the pandemic for two people. I wanted my best friend to be there, who's his godmother. And I mean, yeah, because she's my best friend. And so I got approval for her to be there. And then my husband, she's like, you're not going to the hospital alone. And I was like, no, no, I really am okay. I can go. She's like, no. So she made me stop halfway in Mass. She jumped in the car and we went to Boston.
Oh,
So we parked and we go up there and they're like, when was the last time you ate? And I'm like, I think like 12 o'clock. They're like, well, you're having a baby at 8 o'clock. He's ready to come. And I'm like, what? So I'm calling my husband. He's calling his mom. He's freaking out. I already have my best friend with me. So we're
yeah.
halfway there. My bags were already packed because I was like, very ready for the whole thing. I'd asked all the people what we needed, all the things that would help him recover well, me recover well. So we had everything ready, thankfully. And then at 8:24, I had a C-section, and I had to give birth with a mask, which was horrendous if you've ever had to do that.
I cannot imagine. I cannot.
And so they pulled like the thing down, the shade, and I got to see him, and he was very blue, but he cried. So that's like the only thing I prayed for is just please let him cry. And I begged them, please, can I just see him before you take him away? I know that he needs to go emergently over to Children's, because we were in like a connecting hospital at Brigham and Women, and then they take them right over to Children's. And I said, I know you have to take him quickly, but can I just hold him for a minute? Can I kiss him? And they said, we'll see what we can do. But I said, I just want to see him before he gets intubated. Like, I need that bond with him. And they said, we'll do the best that we can. And so everyone said he looked really good. He was a big boy. Usually heart kids are not big, and he was 8 pounds 9 ounces.
Oh my gosh.
And he looked great. And so then things changed fast. His oxygen started dropping fast, because the problem with the kids with hypoplastic is when that PDA starts to close, he can't get the blood flow through the heart, and he needs it. So they have to like open that back up before the surgery. So they've rushed him over pretty quickly, and they said, we'll try to get you, taken care of, cleaned up, and we'll try to bring you over there so you can see him. And then I was finishing up the surgery, and then got back to the room, and they said, you can't go over because Zane had to be emergently cathed. So they took him to a cath is, I don't know if you guys know what a cath is, but a heart catheterization. They go in through the neck or the groin, and they go into the heart and try to, like, they can do things like that way, like stent things open, balloon them open, or put things in. And so they had to do that to open the PDA back up, because he was, one, just too fresh to go into surgery that night, but they were trying to do the best they could. So they opened that up. But so by the time, they said I couldn't go back that night. So I never got to see him that night, and I was like devastated. And then the next morning, my best friend went with me. We got to walk over, and my husband only got to meet Zane right after surgery, and then walk him to the hospital, and that was it. They said, you're done. You can't even go the rest of the hospital. And at that point, they made me make a decision. You have to pick one person to be your person while you're at Children's. And I said, what do you mean, like your support person? And I said, so I have to pick between my husband and my best friend. And I talked to my husband in depth, and I said, can you take off this time from work? He said, I can, but it's going to be rough because I'm the only income, and the bills are not going to pay for themselves. And he's like, so it's up to you, whatever you want me to do. And I decided in that moment that I was going to pick my best friend, because I thought we'd only be there for a week or two to have the surgery. We'd get out. So, in my head, I'm like, okay, this is the right choice. He was okay with it. She was okay with it. We FaceTimed every day, but my husband couldn't come to the hospital to see Zane even while he went in for surgery. And so that was really hard. So, but my best friend stayed with me solid for that whole, first month. So he had, right when I got over there, he was intubated. So that was like pretty devastating to see. He was sedated. I didn't get to see him cry or look at me, or I didn't get to feed him. I didn't get skin to skin. He had the tube down his neck, so throat. And it was just really hard. So I read to him all the time, and this nurses made like little signs for him and took his his footprints for me, and did all these things. And we met his surgeon pretty quickly, and he said he needs this like now. So at 2 days old, I'm going to go in and do his open heart surgery. And I'm like, can he handle it? Like, is this too soon? Because I've met people who, online that they've waited weeks or a week or months. And he said, no, he's really sick. He needs it now. And he went in awesome detail to this day. I love this man so much. He said everything. He took 2 hours to sit with us and explained everything, and just amazing, amazing man. And just reassured me. He's like, I'm going to do the best I can for your son. And that, like, it was just so comforting. The surgery was 14 hours long. And if you think about a child's heart is the size of a walnut, when they go in and do that. And this is like very, very taxing on a child to do the Norwood. This is like the most fragile time for them. And you can't get sick. You can't like anything. They can't handle it. So, he came out and I got to see him. I think it was like probably like 5 or 6 hours later because they have to make sure they get them all stable. He was very swollen, like unrecognizable. And I just remember standing there like crying, me postpartum. I'm like trying to talk to the doctor. I'm bleeding. I have a catheter in. I'm like a mess. I can't wash my hair. And he's like, everything went as expected. And, I really hope that like this all pans out. Like we couldn't close the chest. But everything went really good. And so that was what we were riding on. He looked great. I couldn't hold him. I couldn't really touch him. And then I think it was at 4 days after that, they closed his chest. And so that was like a huge win for us. I remember having like one of those little baby boards, like today my chest was closed, and I was so excited about that. And being able to like, give him like little baths with some of the nurses, they were just so kind, so informative, like just really trying to help. I couldn't feed him, so I was just trying to pump. But I breastfed the other 2 kids, so I never had a problem with that. Like my breast milk was like overachiever. My kids were like chunky, so I was like, I can do this, but I I always breastfed. So I would just I would pump. But it was really hard for me. I feel like when you're under that much stress trying to, have this outpouring of breast milk, you're not eating right because you're sitting over your baby. I would leave there some days and I didn't really leave the hospital, but I would go back over to Brigham and Women, and my feet would be so swollen because they have those high ICU chairs, and my legs would be so swollen, and they'd be like, you missed your medicine. I'm like, I don't care. It was worth it sitting with him, But after that, so they kept trying to extubate him. I would say it was like at 1 week, they kept trying to extubate him, and he would last a couple hours, and they'd be like, he's really, really sick. And right in front of me, emergently intubate him. And I'm like, this is so traumatizing. Like, they don't even like warn you. Like, people rush in and then they intubate him. And I'm like, this is not real life. Like, you need to warn people. Like, this is so traumatizing, And so they do it, and then there it is. I had his eyes open. He was looking at me, and then in seconds, it's gone. And he's back sedated. And I'm like, this is so messed up. So then we ended up finding out at like probably 3 weeks old, he had like a diaphragm issue. One just kept floating up. And the doctor's like, I'm going to go in and plicate it and tie it to the side of him so that it can stay down. And I think this will help him because I think he got extubated like 4 times. And then it just re-intubating him. And I'm like, this cannot be good for his little throat. Like, this can't be good for him. And I said, well, at the same time, because we still hadn't even been able to feed him at this point. And I said, can you please just put a G-tube in? I feel like this will be like where we are, how hard things have been so far. Can you just do that? That way I don't have to wake him up to eat, and I can know that he's getting what he needs. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, I've never had a parent ask for that, but it was going to be better that way because the G-tube, they could go in through the G-tube site to plicate instead of doing like a thoracotomy and going into a part that would hurt him. So that all went great. And then I think it was like a day later, and the nurse woke me up and she's like, I'm pretty sure Zane's having a seizure. And I said, what do you mean? And I walked over to him, and she was kind of talking with like the charge nurse, and the left side started like shaking. And I said, he's having a seizure, he's seizing. And then everyone ran in, they re-intubated him again. And they said, we have to put the EEG on him, and we need to check what happened. We found out that he had a stroke. So they don't know if it was like a mixture of the surgeries plus like all the closing him and then all that. So at this point, no one knew why he had that seizure, but it didn't seem to affect him too much. Like how much do you know your little 1 month old? And so they put him on like a seizure medicine and said he'll be on this for probably the next year, and hopefully he doesn't have any more seizures, but he does have some brain damage. We think it might affect the like his global thinking and like just random things. I have no idea what they mean. And they said, we'll just keep an eye on him. We'll put him in and get him assessed when he's older. But he might be delayed in some things. And I'm like, okay. And other than that, he really didn't seem like it had affected him much. When he woke back up and the plication worked, and I felt like I finally got like a baby, you know what I mean? I got to hold him and try to feed him, and it was like really cool. It just felt like, okay, now we're heading in the right direction.
We're going to take a pause on this episode at this point and circle back to Susie's story next week for part 2. We hope you've enjoyed this first part of this incredible story, and we know you're going to want to hear the amazing conclusion when we are back next week. Thank you for joining us for today's conversation on Born for This Stories. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to take one simple step. Share it with a friend, another parent, or a caregiver who might need to know they are not alone in this journey. Make sure you are subscribed so you will never miss an episode. We release new stories every Monday. And if you're looking for more connection, resources, or ways to share your own story, come join us on Instagram at Born for This Stories, or visit our website at bornthisstories.com. Remember, whatever part of the journey you're in, the waiting room, the recovery, or the in-between, you do not have to carry it alone. We see you, we stand with you, and never forget, you were born for this.